Today on the Topping Show, Minneapolis mayor says he will not cooperate with ICE trying to deport illegals. Trump is going to roll back the Biden automotive regulations. An old man is beaten in Chicago by a man who had dozens of priors. And a child's helmet gets recalled. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of The Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder twice a day. Gotta say, he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's a joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase, with Picatinny rail adapters that can mount it to any standard AR-15 like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends and your enemies, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have some good news. The automotive industry, Trump rolled back some of the draconian evil regulations from Biden-Harris administration. We'll finally have V8s again. Now, it's brought to us thanks to Politico, and very rare, some good news in the automotive community. Specifically over at Politico, Chris Marquis is right over there. And they say, quote, fuel savings versus car cost, Trump to roll back Biden vehicle rules. The administration announced new standards. Or as Trump would say, winning, we're going to make the V8 great again. Going to have the stick shift in all the vehicles. Some might say we might even have some more Italian over here with the V10 or the V12. It'll be glorious. Which, I mean, Trump didn't say that precisely, but something to that effect, I'm sure. Now, again, they say, quote, Donald Trump just delivered the newest blow against the electric car that's being propped up by terrible regulations. It's funny how they frame it. I did that, which, yeah, that is one of the reasons EVs are going to fail is in 2026. They're not being propped up by this government handout. Now they say, quote, at the White House, they announced sweeping new regulations and changes to automotive executives and congressional lawmakers. Trump said his administration is relaxing the vehicle fuel economy standards that served as a crucial piece of Biden's effort to destroy the automotive community. Well, I changed it. They said that Biden did that to encourage the adoption of electric cars. It's a nice way of saying forcing, coercing. Yeah, the friendly reminder, the automotive industry is one of the most overregulated industries in the United States. One of the reasons why you see EVs being made and propped up is fuel economy standards and fleet emission standards and fleet fuel economy averages. It was so bad that Ford almost had to pay $1 billion because they didn't get the right arbitrary mile per gallon. So they had to make more of these crappy EVs, which again loses Ford $50,000 on average per EV sold. Yeah, and forces consumers to buy disposable junk. Because that's what EVs are right now. There might be magical technology in the future, makes them more reliable, so last more than 10 years. But again, the best combination, bang for your buck, primarily intended because of a nice engine. Get a nice Japanese car with 4 cylinders of glory and a stick shift. It'll outlast most relationships, I would say, and usually 20 to 30 years. Now, they say that, quote, Trump's aides are also promoting the change to push new cars to be more affordable, which, again, decreasing regulation will do. Every year, cars get more and more expensive, in part because emission standards and also safety regulations, and I would argue over-regulations. They say the proposal also includes a step to prevent draconian evil places like California to set tougher fuel requirements imposed by the federal government. Again, I'm changing the phrasing a little bit here. This is extremely important because California, or some people call it California, is the 10th largest automotive, 10th largest, I'm not kidding, 10th largest automotive selling area market on the planet. It's that big, even with all the people leaving in droves. Now, they say, quote, the move comes after a long series of Trump administration efforts to eradicate Biden's, I would say, BS clean energy policies, which, yeah, talk about scam, how much money we wasted on those initiatives. Those include Trump's repeal of the $7,500 customer tax credit for EV purchases, as well as his attacks on California's ability to set the toughest in the nation pollution requirements that are expected to drive sharp increase in EV adoption. Yeah, because they want to make it illegal in California. They have a nice ban. They even banned gasoline-powered lawnmowers, leaf blowers, forcing people to buy more junk in California. They say Republicans also eliminated any monetary penalties for automakers who don't comply with fuel economy standards. Coincidence? I think not. After that was announced a couple weeks ago, Toyota goes, you know what? New Supra might just have a V8, which would be great. Again, one of the reasons you're seeing smaller I would argue less reliable engines, as they put more stress on smaller engines, is because of the fuel economy standards. Good for the short term, but bad for your pocketbook long term, as you have more and more reliability issues. I still am not a fan of the new full-sized, well, it's not new anymore, when Toyota went to the V6 for their full-size Tundra. They should have V8. V8s last a long time. Now, they also say that Trump said that it was a move to save consumers around $1,000 on purchase of new cars and get rid of regulations he sees as anti-economy and horrible. I'm sorry, it's a quote, anti-economy and horrible, which, yes, they also are. Again, every regulation just increases the cost of goods sold to the consumer. Again, the average cost of a new vehicle sold in 2025 was like $50,000. That is ridiculously expensive. And a lot of that cost is because of regulations. And I would argue dramatic over-regulations the government has no business doing. Now, they also say that Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the Biden-era standards were completely unattainable and were driving the cost of cars up by forcing auto companies to spend more money on technology. Yep. Because again, if these companies didn't do it, they're fined into oblivion. And again, these investments are billions upon billions upon billions of dollars, just pissing that money away. Kind of like windmills. Windmills don't break even for 20 years on average. That's just a break even. And that also ignores the bad impact to, ironically, the environment that those windmills actually have. Spoiler alert, those blades are very hazardous. They're actually terrible for the ecosystem when they try to recycle them. And they usually don't recycle them well. They say Wednesday's proposal from the Transportation Department addresses the decade-old corporate average fuel economy program, yes, which Biden regulators had tightened by boosting the standards for light-duty vehicles to 50.4 mile per gallon by 2031. How stupid is that? 50.4 mile per gallon. They say that cars now get an average of 24.4 mile per gallon, according to the Department of Energy. Yeah. So the only way to hit those numbers is make them hybrids or EVs. They're making these unattainable BS standards, which again, the government has no reason to do. No authority to do, I'd argue. They say the new standards released by the Transportation Department propose to increase the economy in a much more incremental and workable way for automakers. I still don't think they should have to. DOT estimates the new rule will wrap up the average vehicle mile per gallon to 34.5 mile per gallon by 2031. The DOT plan to significantly revise the Biden administration's approach by removing language that incorporate electric vehicles in judging automakers' compliance with standards. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration also does not consider performance of plug-in hybrids and compliance credits in the calculation. They're calling it a complete reset. Deputy Transportation Secretary Stephen Brody predicted in a speech last month that the administration would propose a, quote, complete reset of the decade-old corporate average fuel economy program, which he contended would bring something to the order of $100 billion in cost savings to the U.S. economy, which would be great. Imagine if we could actually have reliable vehicles again. Vehicles that had less recalls. Again, Ford has had 138 recalls this year alone. I mean, I can't believe that cars kind of peaked in the 2000 era, partially for nostalgia purposes, but also enough tech where, yeah, got heated seats, maybe had a map you could plug into the infotainment system. Actually, no, not that. Yeah, you had heated seats. That's all you really need. And a stick shift. Those are my priorities, or lack thereof. Now, they say, quote, however, easing fuel economy requirements is unlikely to deflate new vehicle prices in the short term. Automaker production plans are already set years in advance. While other factors include tariffs, supply chain issues, technologies such as autonomous cars, and America's desire for bigger vehicles. Yeah, it'll also mean you'll actually have lightweight trucks. One of the reasons why the new modern Toyota Tacoma is bigger than the old full-size Toyota Tundra is because of the rule set from the government. They said, okay, if you're going to have these numbers, well, it has to be a bigger vehicle. So that's why you see the jokes around for decades where the bed of the truck stays identical for decades, but the trucks get bigger and heavier. Because that's the only way they can get more performance to the consumer. Now, they say Stephanie Brainley, an automotive analyst at S&P Global, said rolling back the Biden-era efficiency standards might bring down the average price of the overall U.S. passenger fleet because of fewer electric vehicles being built, meaning that the more expensive part of the fleets will shrink. So that's some good news there. But I don't know, it's one of those things where this is really great. However, Mark makes a good point in terms of these decade-long investments from these manufacturers. How quickly could they pivot? And again, the big uncertainty is Trump's got a couple more years in office. What happens if Democrats win and they ramp up these where they actually just ban gas cars altogether? I'm sure it'll be challenged, but again, that's one of the big contentions of the automobile industry when you have relatively short cycles of presidential elections compared to vehicle plans. Some vehicle plans and production, it's usually like a 10-year run of a model of vehicle or generation of a vehicle. And it's one of those things where there's a lot of uncertainty. Again, more and more factories are being built in the United States right now because of the tariffs that Trump has enacted. If those tariffs go away, those factories, well, the rate at which they actually make those new factories are going to probably dramatically decrease. Again, some great news. I hope these auto companies move very quickly and make some really awesome cars, especially Dodge, which, I mean, the only reason people buy Dodge vehicles is fun, loud, stupid, obnoxiously fun, big old Hellcat engines. I mean, put a Hellcat Red Eye engine into everything right now, Dodge. Well, you got to sell while you can, baby, and make some good profits. But let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be festive here. What you have to say. Now, going over to the cultural part podcast, you have a man arrested after beating up an old man. It turns out he had many, many priors. Yet another issue with the city, or as I pejoratively call them, the shitty of Chicago. Now, this brought to us thanks to End Wokeness, and he says, quote, breaking, old man was beaten, shoved onto the train tracks in Chicago by a career felon with dozens of arrests. And, yep. Here's this credited to CBS Chicago.
Tommy Carter is charged with attempted murder after punching an elderly man yesterday morning at the Harlem stop in Forest Park. We're told the victim ended up on the tracks, nearly touching the third rail as a train was approaching the stop. Now, the conductor saw the attack and was able to stop the train in time. Police arrested Carter on the platform. We've learned he's had dozens of arrests dating back to 2001.
And of course, in true Chicago fashion, he's back on the streets to commit more crime. And I'll beat the comments. Well, spoiler, a lot of the comments are racial because this is a large African-American man with dreadlocks. And it's reason number 98,735,435,006 to not visit the city of Chicago. Or as we called it when I was growing up in the Midwest, Chirac. Because more people died in Chicago than U.S. soldiers in Iraq when we were over there. Which is insane, but the culture of Chicago. And also, argue politically speaking, incentivized by weak district attorneys, weak and or corrupt district attorneys and judges, just give these pieces of shit a slap on the wrist and they're out on the street the next day, sometimes with no cash bail. Again, this is happening. I think a lot more people are realizing how dangerous cities are, how dangerous it is when you're soft on crime. There was a time, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, as they say in the Star Trek. Kidding, I know there's a Star Wars reference, but there was a time where Republicans and Democrats were very tough on crime. They used to have the three-strike policy. If you get in trouble 3 times, you go to jail for a long, long time. I would argue maybe forever, depending on the severity of the crimes. These guys have been getting in trouble for, what, a decade plus? Why is he out on the street again? It's just shown time and time again. And a lot of these crimes, in terms of one guy was arrested 72 times, he still set a girl on fire. Again, Chicago. He's arrested 72 times. Now, again, some of those might be petty offenses, maybe, although I doubt it was jaywalking. But, I mean, especially if those are actually, instances of assault and battery. Why the hell are we letting these monsters out? Is it because someone wants to create more chaos? It's disgusting how, again, time and time again, these monsters are let out and hurt more and more and more innocent people, sometimes taking their lives. Now, thank God this elderly man was okay. Again, if you're assaulting someone who's more elderly, there's a higher propensity that they actually will pass away or perish if you even just shove them and they hit a hard object in the concrete. And yeah, even if you murdered him, I'm sure this guy would get, raise $500,000 in GoFundMe and, get out of jail within hours. And again, especially the places like Chicago, again, some of these are, publicly, you can go out and vote. Some of them are appointed by people that you vote for in terms of the judicial system. And people in Chicago have done the same thing for about 100 years. I'm so skeptical in terms of, do I think the city of Chicago will ever be a safe, good place to live? Probably be about the same time the Bears won the Super Bowl. Haha, sports ball pun, because the last time they won the Super Bowl, they saved those pictures to a floppy disk, which is a type of physical media where now you only see in terms of the icon when you save something in a Microsoft program. Now, going to the comments for the first one, comes to us thanks to Matt Van Swole, which says, quote, Chicago, Charlotte, send the army in, send in everyone. We're done playing around. We need serious help getting 1,000 likes. Now, again, that's the controversy with Trump sending in the National Guard, which, to Trump's credit, actually cleaned up D.C. That was almost thought impossible. But, again, you have a lot of local mayors, a lot of local Democrats who don't want any help at all. I can't help but think, is that just because they get reelected by saying, well, yeah, vote for me, I'll fix this? Well, Republicans do that too with certain topics. Oh, yeah, vote for me, I'll get more gun rights. Yeah, the NFA Act of 1934 has been around for almost 100 years. When are you actually going to repeal that, Republicans? I'm still waiting. Now, you also have the conservative alternative who says, quote, when a judge releases a violent repeat offender like this, they inevitably become complicit in the crimes. We shouldn't have to live under this kind of judicial tyranny. And she has a quote from Nayib Bukele, who says, quote, he who spares a wolf sacrifices a sheep. Getting 124 likes. Yeah, good quote. I like it. Paul Zupa says, quote, I thought Mayor Brandon Johnson says crime was down in Chicago. Getting 78 likes. He also famously said a couple of weeks ago, oh yeah, you can't just fix crime by arresting people. Yes, it actually is one of the best ways to actually stop crime. Put someone in jail for decades. They can't be out there killing people or stealing from people if they're in jail. Well, at least they can't do it, to civilians, like do it to each other in jail. Now you also have Sons Liberty 357. He has a meme or picture that says, quote, bartenders go to jail for over-serving drunks who kill someone. So judges should face jail time when the criminals they release do the same. 85 likes. Ashley says they're doing it again because you didn't hang them last time, getting 53 likes. USMC Lady Vet says, just another one of Chicago's finer citizens. I'm sure the mayor loves this guy, getting 68 likes. Dangerous Thoughts says there should be federal civil rights division charges for Mayor Johnson, Governor Pritzker, and the last judge who let them go as accessories, getting 11 likes. Get Him Paul says dozens of arrests should not be possible. Lock him up for life, getting 1 like. Gandalf the Grey is getting into crypto. Who isn't these days? Says, quote, same question as always. Why is he free? Getting 3, it's 4 likes. I mean, we know why. Corrupt and or evil activist judges. We see it every time, especially in a place like Chicago. Scott Lee has a racist tweet from Juan Vendato, who says black people should start life in jail and only be released if they act right, getting 128 likes. Frank Benjamin has a picture of Scott Adams, creator of Dilbert Comics, who says, just get the F away from them. His famous quote getting 43 likes. He went viral a couple weeks ago, lost a lot of contracts. He was referencing a race study where he was noticing how, again, small sample size, I believe, but he said in the study, African Americans wanted to, they hated white people. And he said, well, if they hate you, why do I live by them? And he got canceled and lost everything. Not Here For You has a very famous picture compilation where you have these pieces of shit who were arrested between 17 and 72 times who killed people and set them on fire. Yeah. Again, Chicago was arrested 72 times. He set an innocent girl on fire. Another one where he was arrested 45 times. He murdered someone. Another guy was arrested 39 times, arrested. Famously, the human scum who killed the Ukrainian refugee on the train, he was arrested 17 times prior to him murdering her. That got 112 likes. Crazy Flicks has a picture of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says, you can't jail your way out of crime. El Salvador president goes, want to bet, getting 193 likes. Ellie has an AI generated picture of Donald Trump. It says, are y'all ready to see some judges hang for treason? Gave 51 likes, which will never happen. None of these judges are being held accountable. A lot of people Republicans are really good at writing really angry letters, but getting nothing done. So unfortunately, again, a lot of people are bringing up the fact that, these instances are happening more and more. Innocent people are not just being hurt, they're being killed because these monsters laying out jail time again. But again, I'm so skeptical in terms of, do I think anything will change? And just, heaven forbid you live in a city. I would do whatever it takes to not live in a city. But yeah, I don't think things are going to get better. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Minneapolis Mayor Mr. Frey saying that he won't help ICE and start speaking Somali in mid-speech, which, makes sense. He's the mayor of Little Somalia, known as Minneapolis. Again, the state of Minnesota, which I purposely mispronounced as a slight to that weak and conquered state, there are so many Somalians imported there. They changed their state flag, which used to be nice and beautiful, to one that looks like a bastardized photocopy of the Somalian flag. Again, Minnesota has become a weak, conquered state. Now, again, this is particularly credited to End Wokeness, and he says, quote, breaking Minneapolis Mayor Frey says he will not cooperate with ICE and starts speaking Somali mid-speech. This is the mayor of the shitty.
That's not American. That's not what we are about. And we're going to do right by every single person.
Except the taxpayers, and people want, safety and not corruption.
Person in our cities. And so to our Somali community, Daman Shabka, Somalied Kunul, Minnesota, Garahan, Minneapolis, Waan, Ku Janilahai, Waan, Ku Gereb, Taganahan.
There you go. That's the Minneapolis mayor. Or a little Somali, I can't tell the difference. And yep, he's saying they'll not cooperate with ICE. Oh, that'd be grounds. Isn't that grounds for treason? No, of course he won't be held accountable. He's a Democrat. That's never going to happen. Republicans might send him an angry letter, scold him, but let anything actually get done. I'm pretty damn pessimistic. Again, he's speaking to his base. That's who voted for him overwhelmingly, and that's who they've really imported in masses to, again, places like Minneapolis. And will Trump do anything about it? I'm pretty skeptical. It went pretty viral. Got 3.4 million views and 19,000 likes. One of the first ones comes to us thanks to Libercat Media TM. You have a guy who says, Somalia first, proud to be Somalia. The guy from ICE says, okay, buddy, go back to Somalia. He goes, no, this is unfair. Don't send me to Somalia. Oh, no, it ruined my life. In 2,500,000 likes. David Santaclara says, quote, that's not American, finishes in Somali. In 1.3 thousand likes, and yeah, that's kind of a good metaphor. The conservative alternative says, quote, Mayor Frey, blink twice if you need rescue. I think he might be in trouble, guys. He looks more like a hostage situation than a town hall. In 59 likes. Amelia Henderson says, quote, it's not too late. As a picture says, is it too late or can we start talking about deporting Obama's Somalis? In 22 likes. The Salty Texan says, quote, these effing traitors gain 12 likes. Paul Zoop says, actually, Jacob Frey should be arrested, getting 197 likes. Again, if you're impeding the federal government, and again, some of these Somalians are not here illegally, some of them are, and there's a lot of fraud in Minneapolis. Like I said, I don't know how Tim Walz has been fired yet or held accountable. Well, actually, no, he's Democrat. He won't be held accountable. Again, they had over $1 billion in fraud from the Somalis. Tax fraud. Taxpayers should be irate. They're not. But yeah, it's Minneapolis, Minnesota. We'll see people memes. There's a picture of Sidney Sweeney. It says visible disgust, getting 2.5 thousand likes. Miss B has a picture of some folks. It says, can we get some water? You have a pic from the Pawn Stars Photoshop says Trump, and JD Vance says, best I can do is ICE, getting 935 likes. Kingman Lee says, we have laws against treason, but no one is enforcing them. And he asked Google, like, what's the actual fine? It says the United States, the punishment for treason is death or imprisonment for at least 5 years, a fine of at least $10,000, and becoming ineligible to hold any office under the United States, getting 695 likes. 768 likes, going up like a stock. 69 likes. Which, again, Republicans never do anything. Hardly. You have Dustin Garage saying, quote, wow, I thought Jacob Frey was the least worst option for the mayor of Minneapolis. There's a picture of Omar Fatih from Somalia, getting 755 likes. That was the other mayoral candidate. Tommy Lorenz says treason, deport him too, getting 15,000 likes. Maria Isabella says charge him. There's a meme that says it's not a sanctuary city, it's called harboring fugitives, getting 527 likes. Info Battle Maiden says worships everyone but his own people. People like this used to be banished from society, getting 828 likes. God and Country has a picture of a gal holding a sign, I think it's AI. It says, only traitors help invaders, getting 307 likes. Western Lensman says, quote, and Frey was the less radical option. Another picture of Omar Fatih, getting 727 likes. Let's see here. Ichi Keenan says the guy behind him looks like he just told Frey if he messes up, he's going to get taken advantage of in the worst possible way in prison. Getting 168 likes. Let's see here. War for the West says, wow, my level of anger at this is 11 out of 10. What the F is wrong with Democrats getting 50 likes? Which, I mean, again, they're appealing to their base. They imported them in mass, and they voted for them. They give free stuff, especially in Minnesota. I mean, they're just pandering to their base that they built up, partially illegally. So I'm actually not surprised they're speaking Somali. They're speaking the language of their people. I mean, and again, he's not the only one, obviously. Representative Ilhan Omar, he does the same thing with her community. I mean, she actually goes to other countries and says how she wants to put Somali first, and that's her number one objective, which also sounds like treason. Should the United States be your top priority? And again, there are some Republicans who have that same issue. Doesn't seem to put, very few of them actually seem to put America first. Molly Pitcher says, quote, the enemy within are showing themselves and they swear allegiance to, pay attention, getting 75 likes. Ava says Trump should add Minneapolis as a third world country and ban them, getting 42 likes. I mean, parts are becoming like the third world when it comes to their crime, the rates at which they hurt women and kids is also exponentially increasing to represent the third world. Let's Go for a Blow says, for love of God, DHS better start. Oh, I think he tagged the wrong account. Says, better start getting ready to arrest these idiots for obstruction. You know, Minneapolis will become a showdown, getting 108 likes. Florida 1 says, the citizens of Minneapolis need to make changes ASAP. If you don't, your city and state are toast, getting 23 likes. I would argue it's already too late. The Rubin Report says, Somalians in Minneapolis. Guy goes, look at me, I'm the captain now, getting 26 likes, which that was a bad accent attempt. I think that was almost more Arnold Schwarzenegger than anything else. He says, Democrats realize that without these foreigners, they do not have much to hold onto. America is the home of capitalism, not socialism, getting 15 likes. Let's see. Not too many contrarian statements. And again, Omar Fatih, who again was the other mayoral candidate, he gave entire press conferences as well as, campaign rallies speaking Somali. Which again, he's going to this community, and that's a big part of who voted for him. It's crazy to think there's so many people in Minnesota, Minneapolis from Somalia. A blood feud in another country affected the recent mayoral election. Again, one of the reasons Omar Fatih didn't get as many votes is because there's a blood feud between the tribes in Somalia. That's some of the reasons that some of the Somalians voted for Mr. Frey, because of a blood feud in Somalia, affecting U.S. elections. How messed up is that? Nevada Liberty 1864 has a Back to the Future meme. Says, hey Doc, what happened in the years of 2020? He goes, there was a cold and everyone turned into communist retards, getting 358 likes. Let's see. Florida Mama says, I'm past the point of wanting to deport illegals. I want to deport the people who want them here too, getting 475 likes. The Savage Patriot going on the trend of people making parodies of the Franklin books, the little turtle. Says, a classic Franklin story. Franklin throws up a little in his mouth. He's reading a newspaper, says, Ilhan Omar married her brother. 158 likes, which, yeah, we're told to respect all cultures. That practice is very, there's a high propensity of them doing that. Personally, I think that's disgusting. But again, Democrats, they say you have to respect that. Going down more and more. Very famous quote from Teddy Roosevelt, credited to Alec Bowers. This is, I believe, 1907. And it says, credit to a newspaper in Austin, Texas. It says, Theodore Roosevelt's ideals on immigration and being an American in 1907. Again, Theodore Roosevelt said, quote, in the first place, we should insist if you are an immigrant who comes here in a good faith, becomes an American, and assimilate himself to us. He also says, but this is predicated upon the person's becoming in every facet an American and nothing but an American. And then he continues saying, quote, we have room for only one flag, the American flag. We have room for only one language here, and that is the English language. And we have room for one sole loyalty, and that loyalty is to the American people, getting 198 likes. Yeah, let's give him 199. Yeah, that's definitely changed. And again, this is a very different scene we've seen culturally and politically speaking. I would argue in the past about a decade or so. Yeah, my family came here from Cuba, legally on an airplane, believe it or not. Right when Fidel took over. And again, they spoke Spanish, obviously. Well, I kind of joke and say they went to the one place in the world worse than communist Cuba, Southside Detroit. But again, they learned language, they adopted the American flag, learned the ideologies of the founding fathers, what made America great, and they all worked like hell, became contributing members of society. And you'll never see a Cuban wave a Cuban flag because they hate that country because they destroyed it with communism. You see the American flag, but not Cuban flag. And again, you've seen a lot more people coming to America, and they're waving their own country's flag, which, again, if you like that country, why would you come here? It seems like it's just for jobs. It seems like the only thing that unites people in the United States anymore is the American, the US dollar, which Lord knows that's not worth much anymore, thanks to Democrats and Republicans printing money and inflation. And yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like we're unified anymore. And Teddy Roosevelt warned us about this over 100 years ago. I think, the lack of assimilation is why there's so much controversy, why there's so much friction in the United States, why there's a lot of these bad things happening. Again, record numbers of women and children being abused in places like Minneapolis because of who's coming here. In their culture, it's common. In their culture, it's accepted. Not here. It's disgusting that more and more people are being hurt, not just economically because they're losing jobs, but also physically abused and even murdered by some of these folks who are clearly not assimilating. Again, this isn't every single one of them. Obviously, some people still greatly assimilate when they come to the United States. But nowadays, it seems like there's no assimilation. There's a lot of welfare. Minneapolis, they stole $1 billion from taxpayers. It just seems to get worse and worse. You also have Carter family saying, quote, this is everything wrong with the Democrat leadership, getting 1.5 thousand likes. Yeah, I Love American News says this has to stop, and it says 45% of Afghan migrants to America receive food stamps. 42% of Somali migrants to America receive food stamps. They also cost us $1.1 million per person on average. That's astronomically bad. $1.1 million per person. It also notes that 35% of Iraqi migrants come to America receive food stamps. 23% of Haitian migrants to America receive food stamps. It says cut all of them immediately and permanently, gain 343 likes. Washington Ghost also says deport him too. And again, that was the thing. Decades ago, there weren't half these entitlement programs. It used to be 100 years ago, you came here as a big risk. You traversed the world for the opportunity to work like hell and build a life. Now people come here and they complain. They want more free stuff. They're getting free phones, free hotels. I think it's like $750 per night voucher in New York City, where they've given away those hotel rooms to illegals. So again, unfortunately, I think this problem is just going to get worse and worse. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, your child's bicycle helmet being recalled because, whoops, it actually isn't safe at all. Now, brought to us thanks to the United States Consumer Product Safety website, perhaps the only useful website, though, pretty low bar from the government. And they say, quote, Outdoor Master children's and youth helmets are recalled due to the risk of serious injury or death from a head injury. It violates a mandatory standard for bicycle helmets sold and imported by Outdoor Master. Now, again, they say, quote, oh, good old issues with the computers. Although I joke, if there weren't IT issues, I'd be half my job gone, so I can never be too upset when there's inevitable IT hiccups. They say, quote, recalled children's and youth helmets violate the mandatory safety standard for bicycle helmets. Particularly, the helmets do not comply with the position stability and coverage requirements. The helmets can therefore fail to protect a user in extreme event of a crash, posing a risk of injury or death due to the head injury, which, again, I'm not a genius, but how do you not know how to make a helmet the right sized in terms of where they're skipping out of materials? I mean, the helmet should cover the head. It shouldn't be, one would think that'd be like the bare minimum of what this helmet does. And yet they mess that up. Now, again, in terms of, talking about earlier in the show, being overregulation in the automotive community, this might be regulation where, yeah, it makes sense. You want to have a standard so that all helmets will protect the skull. Again, I'm not necessarily against all regulation per se, just most of it. And thankfully, they got ahead of the regulation, or they got ahead of the recall. No one's been hurt or injured. These are also sold on Amazon and Walmart.com from June 2024 through February 2025 for between $20 and $32. Imported by Mason Products, more accurately, doing business as Outdoor Master of Chino, California. They see the recall affects 2 models of the Outdoor Master brand children's bicycle and youth helmets. Pull them up here. One's got a cute little dinosaur sonnet. The other one looks like a skateboard helmet, just a cream color. And I don't know, do they just not know how to properly measure a dummy? It seems, again, some of these recalls are kind of frivolous. This one, I understand, it's better to be safe than sorry. I don't know, how do you mess up a design where you don't actually cover the entire skull? That's just ridiculous. So I gotta say, Mason, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Don't forget to take the time to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment to give me some additional feedback. Let me know how to make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone, everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.